This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and if you've ever felt anxious on being on a big motorway, a freeway, busy roads, intense traffic, then you might be able to connect with the overall premise of this hypnosis session, because I was working with a client that for years were completely fine on motorways and busy roads, but then a couple of things happened and it got them questioning whether or not they could handle it. And then that's how the seed of anxiety was formed. And it grew because the idea of driving on roads made them feel anxious, so they would avoid going on roads, which then gave them more evidence that they couldn't cope, which then increased the anxiety. What this session does is starts to link resourceful states like confidence and fun, excitement, freedom, fearlessness to the idea of driving. Now, I've done a lot of work with this client before. This is taking it to a first-person experiential perspective of imagining driving on roads that previously were challenging for them, but in a really resourceful way. And I use virtual reality as the metaphorical device to get them imagining what it would be like to be driving on roads in a first-person perspective while feeling confident. And we use this idea of avatars. When they were 18 years old, they were driving fearlessly. When they were 35 years old, they were driving very experientially, and they knew how to drive and it didn't faze them at all. Or the future version of them, when they're finally through this and they can drive without any issues, they get to choose the avatar and then experience these previously challenging roads to feel what it would feel like to be resourceful and confident while driving on roads that once felt beyond reach. So if you have motorway anxiety or driving anxiety, there might be certain elements in this that you can really connect to. Please be aware, though, that it was created for an individual. They specifically had a anxiety connected to motorways and large A roads and dual carriageways. For you, it might be different. You know, I've worked with people that their fear is if it's kind of single lanes, but you know, there's what seems to be quite close online traffic on opposing traffic, or it might be like winding roads in the countryside. This wasn't this client, but I've worked with people that are. So hone into any suggestions that really connect with where your situation is and ignore and disregard any that don't quite fit. And if you like the idea of having a bespoke session with me so that we get to build it specific to you and your particular triggers or needs, there will be a link in the description, but also on my website, which is adamcox.co.uk. Check that out, book a free consultation call, we'll have a chat, and it might be that you experience a live session with me rather than just recordings like this one. For now, though, find a quiet, comfortable place where you won't be distracted or disturbed, relax, and enjoy the session. Take a deep breath in. And as you breathe in that slow, long, relaxing breath. And as you exhale, just allow your eyelids to close. And as they close, give permission to release any tension. That's it. Exhaling tension and breathing in relaxation. Each breath enables you to breathe in a feeling of resourcefulness and to exhale like a valve. Any pressure, any stress, any tension you've been holding on to. And what if most of that pressure, tension, and stress is linked to the idea that you should be doing something that doesn't feel like it used to feel? As you breathe in that feeling of resourcefulness, just scan your body for any clues of tension, worry, or anxiety. Imagine those feelings melting away. And then, as you exhale, just imagine a dark, shadowy color leaving your body in your outward breath to represent that tension, anxiety, or worry. Many people feel tension around the back of their neck, the jaw, around the temple, the forehead. So as you breathe in that feeling of relaxation, give permission to release. Imagine that tension leaving your body. Arms and legs feeling more comfortable, more relaxed. And if tension is around the face and the neck and the shoulders, anxiety is often hiding there in the gut. Sometimes it feels like a vice or a twisting sensation, and just imagine as you breathe in that feeling of resourceful relaxation, any sensations there in the gut start to do the opposite, twisting the other way round. If something feels tight, allow it to expand. That's it. And perhaps you've already noticed that the deeper you breathe, the more relaxed you feel. And paradoxically, the more relaxed you feel, the deeper you breathe. And as your body relaxes, your imagination can awaken. And I want you to imagine what it would feel like to be in a room with the world's most advanced virtual reality headset. Perhaps you could imagine this is technology from the future available now. Virtual reality so good it becomes indistinguishable from reality. And I want you to imagine, as you put the headset on, you are introduced to a screen where you can see 3 different versions of you. I want you to imagine seeing the 18-year-old version of you, a fearless driver. Nothing phases them. When they're behind the wheel, nothing feels daunting, everything feels doable. And you could experience driving from their perspective. But you have choice. The second avatar, the second option, is you as a 35-year-old. A steady hand, wise, experienced, confident and calm. That version of you is relaxed at the very idea of driving. A 7 or 8 hour drive, no big deal. Motorways, A roads, not important. Whatever's the fastest way is the right way. Or maybe you'll choose that future version of you. I want you to see the version of you that is happy when driving on any road in any conditions. That version of you did have a period of their life where they felt anxious, but they're over that now. And see that future version of you, not just happy, but resilient. They were able to harness a feeling of courage, tenacity, or determination to get out the other side. And I want you to imagine that it doesn't matter which one you choose, because the next time you listen to this recording, you could choose a different one to connect different resources to that feeling of driving. So once you've decided which of these 3 avatars you will embody now, imagine stepping into that version of you and let me know by nodding your head. That's it. And I want you to breathe the way they breathe. Have the inner dialogue that they have. Feel just as relaxed as they would feel. And feel how you would feel about driving the way they would feel about driving. Maybe it's fun. Maybe it's just something pragmatic. Maybe it represents freedom, or maybe it represents something mundane that you've done 1,000 times before. And as you connect with that, I want you to imagine in this virtual reality, you're not seeing a car, you're seeing your car. And I want you to imagine opening the door, sitting in the driver's seat, and maybe starting that car. But the sensation of feeling your body weight in the chair makes you feel grounded and relaxed. The very moment you feel the sensation of the steering wheel in the palms of your hand, you feel in control. The very moment you start moving forward, movement equals motivation. And I want you to feel that motivation. And if you choose to play music, music connects with that feeling of freedom and fun. And I want you to imagine you're about to go on a drive. And I want you to imagine there is a particular A road you have in mind. And I want you to imagine feeling more comfortable, more confident, more relaxed than you can ever remember. And just imagine taking those small roads, those constant stops and starts at roundabout or traffic lights, until you're able to get to a slightly faster moving road, but maybe just a B road. Maybe one of those country roads where traffic's moving in both directions. But I want you to feel connected to a smile. I want you to feel that same way you felt in the past when you're about to do something that feels like it may be just beyond certain ideas of what feels comfortable. Maybe a jump. And I want you to feel that sometimes having an easy win can give you the confidence to do something a little bit more daunting. And maybe you need that, and maybe you don't. Maybe you just feel fearless or confident or happy. And I want you to imagine continuing to drive until you find a slip road that is feeding into an A road. But I want you to feel that any signposts are now a signal that you have the resources required. Every signpost is a signpost of capability. And as the slip road merges into that A road, I want you to feel that you are merging with every version of you that knows how to confidently, calmly, and relaxed drive. See what you would see joining that stretch of road on that junction. But notice how you're handling the wheel. That steering wheel feels relaxed. Maybe it's loose, one hand near the bottom. Maybe your other arm is just by your side. Maybe there's someone in the car with you and you could imagine chatting and feeling relaxed. Or maybe you've got the music turned up high and it just feels like that version of you that is carefree. And I want you to make the evaluation while you're on that first stretch. I can do this. I want it to feel like this is well within your capabilities. I want you to think while you're on that road that if a small child starts to think there's a monster under their bed or in the closet, all they have to do is to look under the bed or open the closet to see that the monster was never real. But they don't, because the monster's too scary. And every time they don't look, the monster gets bigger and bigger. But what if this whole game of anxiety is a bluff? What if where it all came from was just a false positive? A day when you felt overwhelmed and drowsy. A day when you may have even had a fever. And a thought popped into your head, I can't do this. Not because you couldn't drive, but because of another reason. In which case, what if all the anxiety has not come from the challenge of driving on these roads, but by a self-fulfilling prophecy of thinking that it was something beyond reach? That would be like trying to put out a fire, but using petrol instead of water. The very thing you were doing to help made the thing worse. But now as you imagine driving on that A road, connected to a feeling of resourcefulness, of calm confidence, it's almost like you're like that child that's looked under the bed and finally realized that the monster was never real. And when you know the monster isn't real, how difficult does it become for the monster to come back? And I want you to imagine choosing to spend maybe an extra 2 junctions there on that A road. not because you should, but just because you could. It dawns on you that you're choosing all of this. And sometimes choosing to do something that at one point felt beyond reach can feel liberating. Maybe you call it courage, or faith, or stubbornness, or tenacity. The word doesn't matter. But feeling a resource to do something is the very thing that makes the monster disappear. Connect to that feeling of calm confidence, and then see a signpost to leave this stretch of the road. And as you leave, maybe there's a roundabout, or maybe it just filters directly into a dual carriageway. And I want you to feel that this feels well within reach. I want you to imagine feeling that the dual carriageway, like the A road, now feels within your comfort zone, not beyond it. And the more time you spend thinking that way, the more you will create a desire to do the thing that deep down you already know you're able to do. Just like when you saw those jumps. And sometimes you thought a bit too long on those jumps. And the longer you thought, the more it felt beyond reach, until a moment clicked. And maybe you said something to yourself. Something like, I'm just going to do it. And you did. And notice how quickly you went from anxiety to accomplishment, excitement, pride. Just based on a decision followed by action. And I want you to feel that these roads are not the problem. They're the canary in the coal mine. They let you know how you're progressing. And when you start to do things that before you were avoiding, your comfort zone is expanding. And when the comfort zone keeps on expanding until there isn't a single road, motorway, or weather condition that would feel daunting to you, then this fear is banished forever. Rather than looking at things to avoid, your mind takes you to a place of challenges to overcome, and each one makes the next one easier. A busy, single lane makes a slow dual carriageway seem easy. An empty dual carriageway makes you feel that you can handle a busy dual carriageway. A busy dual carriageway makes you feel that you can do an A road. On some mid-morning or late afternoon, avoiding rush hour. And when you've done it without much traffic, your mind will let you know that you can then do it with traffic. And if you can do an A road with traffic, then you can join a motorway where there is none. And when you feel comfortable on that motorway without traffic, as more traffic starts to appeal, it still feels within the comfort zone. And I want you to imagine each level is expanding your comfort zone. You're still connected to that feeling of fearless, calm confidence. Every time you do something beyond a previous limitation, you feel happy. Because what is happiness if it isn't growth? If it isn't expanding choices and possibilities? And then allow this virtual reality headset to take you to a combination where two busy motorways connect in a big city. And rather than this being daunting, you feel like the hero meeting their nemesis. And rather than feeling intimidated, you feel courageous. Rather than feeling daunted, you feel excited. And I want you to imagine there you are in your car, driving around two busy motorways, just long enough for you to feel bored. Because here's the irony. Most people think that facing their fear is going to feel exhilarating. But that's not the real goal. The real goal is to keep doing it until it becomes meaningless. And when it becomes meaningless, and something that used to make you feel anxious makes you feel bored, then that's when the fear is dead. And I don't know if this will take days or weeks or months. All I know is that you already have the neural pathways that know how to drive confidently on any road. You've had moments of driving on major roads in different countries with different rules and signs, and you were fine. And what if all of this is just that tiny monster that was allowed to grow, and it felt scary because you kept on avoiding it? And now you're willing to open that closet, look under the bed, but from a place of choice, courage, tenacity, not obligation. When you choose to do it, it sets you free. When you feel like you have to do it, it deprives you of the win. And I want you to imagine experiencing a future 1 year from now. And imagine doing a long journey with many motorways, and it just feels like you're more interested on what music you're playing and what's going to happen when you get there, what roads you're on, the type, and anything like that is almost meaningless. And if your unconscious can connect, let me know by nodding your head. That's it. And then imagine driving back in reverse order, all the way back to your home, feeling calm and confident, relaxed and fearless, perhaps with relief or liberation, but not necessarily. That sprinkles on the icing on the cake, not the cake itself. And then when you return home, feel like you're drifting back to where you are now, taking all these wonderful changes with you, and feeling like you have primed the very ways of thinking so that you want to take what happens in your imagination and make it real. So take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. Connect and calibrate into the here and the now, as I now count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. Starting to count. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of The Hypnotist. If you've enjoyed this episode or got some value from it, please give it a 5-star rating and review. And maybe you know someone that would also benefit from this particular episode, in which case share the episode with them so they can also get the benefit too. And if you would like to listen to this episode where it's just the hypnosis, so no intro, no outro, no explanation, just the hypnosis and completely ad-free, there will be a link in the description where you can subscribe at a very low cost and only get access to the hypnosis. So if that's of interest, please check that out. Thank you again for being a regular listener of The Hypnotist, and I'll see you again soon for more.